Hi, I make a new video. Yeah, as of today, I've made a short break since my last videos. Yeah, because I got a new job and had something to work. But today I want to explain something about my open source project that I have made a much bigger break, about 6 years. And this was because I started with advertising of the open source project and figuring out that there is not so much success with it. With my budget, I have my budget, I have invested, and after this, I got some other interest in other stuff, and that's because as well model-driven development did not gain such an attraction, and other developers and engineers as well have argued that this may take some years, in that time, round about 8 to 10 years, to become mainstream. And today, I am in the process, in the progress of migrating my software to GitHub. And my first trial was using a new name for the project at all, resembling the name of the project itself as I have named it. And I got some problems with the migration from CVS, which SourceForge has skipped to support since some years, and this was the next, so to say, showstopper for me to be able to develop further with the support of SourceForge, because yeah, I had somehow to migrate, and my main goal was not to lose the history of my project, and this I have resolved somehow with this version. Actually, in the GitHub repository, I got some little problems because I have two branches in CVS, and I managed to override changes from an old branch I no longer have used since a while in CVS, and I need to drop this repository and replace it with a new trial that I am actually still on CVS, and I have moved my repository from SourceForge to a private server to be able to make the development steps toward short before migrating it again to GitHub with a working code base, with the support of my compiler setup. I need to provide to enable using that old compiler before I start migrating the source code to be compilable with a new version of MinGW. And meanwhile, these changes and the trial to get a running development machine again up and running, I found that the old compiler was no longer able to be downloaded, and I needed to grab my old backup from my Windows XP machine, because my other machine here with Windows 10 on my old Lenovo T400 got some outdated with Windows 10 updates and not capable of updating it because of too old hardware, too old, no space on the machine. And that's the case because I have changed something in my hardware and I have purchased a new machine. I want to show something like this one is my new Lenovo laptop. It's an L15 with 64 gigabyte of RAM. And I purchased it with intention about the maximum of RAM, so that I have long about it and to be able to get the development for the Windows system onto this notebook, and as well to be able to test against virtual machines running on this laptop as well. And therefore I have some other steps with I required still to use Windows XP because the old compiler is running only on 32-bit. I have a backup, I think, of a MinGW 5.2, I think, probably. This is the version I have used, but I have as well a backup with a pre-installed set of compiler. I am actually able to grab, and I have a build system on continuous integration system running with Jenkins. And therefore, this Jenkins instance for Windows builds are still using my old T400, but this is out of date, out of support from the hardware side. I am unable to use it anymore in a good fashion or in a good manner. But I still need the old compiler set up on the server, and I haven't moved to a Windows 10 build system because I now found out that I did not get the compilers. If I use the last release of the source code setup, which pulls a compiler on demand, if someone is choosing to enable the automatic compiler installation that I have integrated, pulling the compiler, pulling the VX widgets, libraries, anything else. It has been working at that time, but no longer as of today. So I have some work changing the build system. I have some work on providing some compiler setup that I can provide a ready-to-use development environment for some users of interest to be able to start building the source code so that I have a chance that someone can use the software as well out of the source code. And that's the main points as of now. Migrating to GitHub, supporting a compiler that I can provide a setup tool for it. And if this is running, I can provide the release for it, and I can switch to GitHub at this point. Yeah. So to be short, this is the point about I am playing on the notebook. about my open source project. There are some steps to be done before I fully recover from my break with the software development. And after that, I optionally think about supporting generating Visual Studio project files out of the mkmk tool, which as well needs to be ported to compile with MinGW. That is actually possible, but not checked in GitHub. To get rid of the usage of the Open Watcom compiler. So these are some remainings I need to fix before going further with my development. And I need to switch somehow back. Now I want to show some other projects I am involved historically. I want to show because I have made some cleanup or made some decision. I need to save the code. I do assume that nobody is really using it, but I don't want to lose my effort I have done in the time. And therefore I simply put it in the GitHub. It will be probably changed somehow a little bit, but my main goal is to preserve my work in a public repository and make it public, because someone wants to play with Turbo Pascal. It's a Turbo Pascal 6 application, and I now want to show something about where is the Windows M? I don't know. This is some old stuff. Okay. And I want to go to my Windows XP system. Maybe you was hearing something. I have no idea. And there is my new environment that I plan to help me porting the software. And if I go back, and I have as well an XP development server, which is running a Jenkins slave. And this is still able to compile the complete open source project. And it has some other projects hosted I want to report on later on, probably. So these two machines are still running on XP for a reason. And the reason is the Watcom compiler isn't yet running completely without problems on Windows 10, I have figured out. And other stuff like Visual Studio 6.0 I have reactivated some time ago or some weeks ago, I think. And as you see, I have purchased as well some MFC libraries to make another port that my software I want to support with. For the main reason of getting a nicer looking GUI for the Windows application. And this is probably, or for the reason that I've purchased this product, a commercial version of my open source software. And just to say, it doesn't matter how I code it. It is a product, and you as a user probably don't want to know or don't need to know what is behind. But it should look like a nice user interface of modern days. Therefore, I have purchased the MFC library, and as well because I had done some MFC programming in the past, historically, and there is, for this sake of fact, that I have some knowledge about it. So where do I go next with my speech about which one I want to show? Okay, historically I have as well running a Pascal compiler on my XP system. This is probably not running on Windows 10. I have not tried it. And I just want to show some. Did it work? Doesn't work. TV. So it doesn't work on this machine anyhow. Where's the code? TP builds has some set path gleich path c TP builds. Maybe it's running. Okay. I started programming in the days of Turbo Pascal and yet before with Commodore C64, the good old Bratkasten and Brotkasten in Germany. And this was one of the projects I had. Was so to say a disk catalog system where I was thinking about I need it because I had so much disks, and after I got my first hard drive with 20 megabytes in that days, it was as well possible to show some contents able to be catalogized, to catalogize in the software, and to find where it is on the system, and it is labeled somehow. I have some disks, for example, it is this one. And this is historically disk 55. And this was a backup of a catalogized software disk for my backups of the application Train, which is an MFC based application of the days of 16-bit computer. So that's for now. I have no idea if I anyhow port the software to a modern operating system with Pascal, maybe with going to the Windows version of it, or if I simply leave it as is, because there are nowadays even products available that catalogize software in a much better way, with more features than I ever have dreamed of in that days. So therefore it's only showing what I have done and what was my learning path. In these days I learned about data structures and have no database for the sake of that time. I didn't use something like DBase or Clipper or something like similar products, because it was my beginning of hobby programming. After or while I got my occupation career, while I learned the electronics engineering stuff, I have read many books about programming, about computer technology, and with the beginning in the occupation, there was some basic programming, and I was bored about basic programming because in that time I learned Pascal programming and object-oriented programming, data structures as well. And this is an example about lists, indexes, and cross-linked relations between. So the relation between is, for example, a disk has some contents, it has a path, and on that path disk, in this case, with this label, I have, when I switch the display mode, I switch to the contents of that disk with that label, which was scanned into the system on drive B, because on the virtual machine I have had some physical disk running and mounted. So this was the beginning of software development, for short. And after creating DOS applications with SAA UI technology, something new I run into with trying to sell some product I have made without SAA or UI technology. I found I have to learn something new, and this was the Pascal. Later on, I got Windows and Windows 3.1, and there I had started with the Open Watcom. And since these days to now, I roughly can say I cannot understand that this product is still available in this form. From the usability side, when I compare it to Visual Studio or Visual C, for example, from the debugging experience. And my next project I want to show is a 16-bit. I need to open something. Where do I have it? Database. to go to Q. It's empty. Where is the stuff? Didn't find my projects. It's no longer Q. It's any somehow U on a different Pascal, LBDMF, app development. I think I need to go. Here I have only some test projects relating to MFC. I need to go to my XP dev build server. Okay, I simply have had opened the session. Here I have some projects running, and it was the initial 16-bit train. For example, did it compile? Probably. It's still running. And in that time, the application has been grown to be multiple files here, many more files about some train reservation system, some train riding reservation system for historical steam locomotives and some steam trains, and just to see if I can start it. And it was somehow an idea to make some graphical plan about the ride, the train stations and anything else, and this version didn't run on the 16-bit version anymore, and I have ported it to a 32-bit version with little changes, removing some tunking, 16-bit to 16-bit tunking code, and I need to compile it. Some seconds later, I'm still online, and so it's working. It has been compiled. Where's my mouse? And try to run it. Show some functioning drawing some. Okay, it's going back to some connection. And now, anyhow, I do not understand what I have done in these days about connecting without showing some line. but I think Icon Bahnhof ist noch keinen Namen. The name of the train station is not given yet, and okay, it crashes. Therefore, it's not ready, and I cannot show much of it except crashes. So in these days, the software looked like ugly. For nowadays viewpoint of used to use software, they are much too old. And I want to show this code in a ported manner on Visual Studio. I have done it, but not on the machine I was just before. Yeah, don't bother me. XPDev, no, I want to go here. And here I have only some test projects because I want to compare the tools from the perspective of what the vendors have made in that time. And what I was not able to find out is that Watcom had some UI tool to develop MFC applications, and I played around with it in the last weeks, even going to have some 16-bit application. It probably doesn't work. Okay, it works somehow. It's simply an empty application. 16-bit application is painting well without artifacts here in this point. And this application is as well showing some different buttons. This is not a Windows XP button like here. And I can only run 16-bit applications on Windows XP. To be able to port some 16-bit old code if I want, I need such a machine. And therefore is the setup as well suitable to port some old code. And as well I have done my project porting to 32-bit, and I was able to move the code. I could probably show it with some stuff here. I'm not sure if I have it now. Identity server. No, I don't think. Was it on 17 Studio? Diagram main demo. I don't know. Go away. I have some Q develop Git projects. Nothing to see. It's not there. Disk 55. This was a backup of the uh, 1995. good old project. Okay, 1996. 93 Pro CLI. This is 1993, the last change of some menu design. I want to go to the newest. Okay, this is not the folder where I've made some migration code. I know I have ported it to Visual Studio. But somehow, probably I have some backup stick. Going in. Intenso. What is the? Some vocable data files from my other application in Turbo Pascal, vocable training software, and I collected some vocables. This is the project, develop tools, bin cpp. Okay, I think I have tossed the port. Prepare for Git. Anyhow, there was also a Git object, a Git repository, or the project itself was able to be used. Here I have no Visual C. Here I have Visual C, and only I have tried out the tests. .com tools. Let's say test. What test? This is the VWP. I can tell later. Empty. No. Co-develop. Git projects, CVS migration, Pascal here, train. I think here is it. I need some timestamp. Watching. Change somehow in the nowadays. Prepare for Git commits. I think I have it here. Wpack tra. Maybe I have it on the wrong computer. And to be able to show it, okay, I don't show it now. I know that I have made it. It's not really so important to show it here. This 16-bit was working. 32-bit, this was, what I want to show is what I was not able to find, or I have not noticed the tools that were included in the Watcom. And this was something like a visual programmer. Okay, I have made some changes probably since then. And if I go to tools and to the designer. Don't see me. And this was somehow a tool to design the software, creating some prototype, so to be able to click through, and meanwhile editing it or even running it. I was able to edit the toolbar in the running application. So from the idea, it's an integrated prototyping tool. In those days, I would argue to be a good idea. And nowadays, I am doing similar stuff, like prototyping a database application. This, of course, in that time was no database application, and there I would able to be design something. It had too much stuff to be able to confuse some beginners. What I can change here, and I want to stop. I want to exit. So it had much stuff to learn as a programmer, more likely than as an end user. Therefore, there is too much knowledge required later on. If I change something like the code here, I have now created some code, and I can recreate the code, or probably it works. This is a 16-bit still, and I try to open it. Now I have compiled. About, and the application I want to show is simply running in a little bit different form. You see the designer shows here something different, and the resulting 16-bit application is therefore a setting from the project. And I want to close this. Go away. And I go to the 32-bit version. And yeah, save it. Okay, maybe. Build. It builds. And here you see some, I want to show at first. You see some artifacts here. There are some small differences in the drawing of the application, but as well you see new styled buttons like those of Windows XP, and it's doing the same as expected. Boing. And if I find the buttons now, okay, I don't see my mouse on the overlay of myself. And this was only the demonstration and the play with the MFC library based on the available tools. And I compared it with Visual C test. I want to rebuild all. And I am able to überlappend nebeneinander. So I have no artifacts. I have some little differences in the toolbar. So the MFC library from Visual C is better implemented, probably a newer version than those I have had in Watcom. And the debugger is better. I can go into the source code, say on up about, go some breakpoint. I have started it with Visual C, and I go to the about button. Okay, this is the about, info about. There's something else. No, I didn't start it in debug mode. Now I can debug in, and you see here this is integrated in the same project, like project management like software, which contains the files, anything else. And when you compare it with Watcom, you have your project management, but you have a different editor where you need to go to some point to set some breakpoint. This gilt send MDI. Tile, I want to say what is here the breakpoint? What was it? Oh. Ahahaha. This is the editor. And I am confused to set some breakpoints not able in the editor. So from the usability, beginning with C++ programming and in general Windows programming in these days, I don't understand how I was able to create so much code. Compared to today, it's nothing, okay? And for the sake of my application, this is as well some example only, but I was not able to debug. I need to go into the debugger, and here I don't see my code in the startup. It's somehow I need to find MDE child, tile. Here is the. I need some symbol. So, am I starting it? Now I'm starting it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I am on the breakpoint. But I cannot edit the code here in the debugger. I can only edit it in a separate editor, and I cannot so simply jump between the definition of a function and the implementation of a function. And if I compare this with some simple, I have some debugger running. What is this? What was this? Sofort beenden. Yo, go away. This is a test. I don't want this. I have to open. I have opened too much. simply go back, stop the debugger, nothing opened, go to the project, and here I am able to see directly some breakpoints, even if I cannot double click onto it. Haltepunkt entfernen. Don't get confused with my German mixing here. I'm German. And you could go to the code, you could go to the header file definition, and the navigation is much better. And this is why I want to go to support Visual Studio at the end with my mkmk file makefile generation tool, because I want as well have the better experience of development. Comparing it in Linux, I am going to the debugger GDB on the console, and this is much more hardcore programming that is probably required to be able to do it so. But for the sake of simplicity, on Windows programming on a multi-platform project, I still could go to the Windows environment, program it there, and go to the check it in and wait until the source code has been built on the Jenkins integration. And later on, I am able to see some problems on the different platforms, and if I need to go to Linux, I am able to. But in general, I want to port it to the Visual Studio supported version, where someone else could as well go to the Visual Studio editor, build it, debug it, what I have created, and probably help me much more likely, because he's able to use Visual Studio. This is one case that I am assuming that I have no users in interest helping me in development, and meanwhile making some advertisement for getting some return of invest. This is a different story, but for the sake of the platform I am now using, I still need to support XP because I have not migrated to a Windows 10 machine. And yeah, there's much to do. And if I compare it, because if I want to, I've told to move to MFC again, away from VX widgets, has one big issue and decision I have made is the following. This UI looks a little bit better than the Watcom, but it's not so much a good looking UI of nowadays. If I go to the product I have purchased, I've made some test project, and alles neu erstellen. Yeah, some little errors here, 2 errors you can ignore. I don't know why. It compiles. And the following issue is I can port 16-bit code on a Windows XP system that supports 16-bit running of software with Watcom, find some errors, find some differences between the platform bit lengths, 16 and versus 32-bit software, syncing 16-bit thunks mechanisms to call 16-bit code from a 32-bit Windows system. And later on, if I have ported it to 32-bit, I am able to do on the same machine with Visual Studio, port it to the most recent modern software UI framework that is possible with native C++ coding. And this is the main reason because I have chosen it. The UI looks pretty well, and I still am able to use my software in C++ without .NET. How is it named? P-invoke calls to invoke some C native code. It's a little bit tricky, and it's not the way to mix so much code from the old systems. You either need to go switch to a new project, make completely new, or you keep your software running still on a system that supports the C compiler, and I have a multi-platform system. I want to support these old compilers or native compiler, but I want to have a modern looking product, and I want to go to a product with my software. And if you see the compiled code, this is still MFC, but surprise, surprise. Look at it. You have some options. You have some features that is available in this framework. It is MFC. And of course, it is an old framework. But look at what it can bring you. This is a modern looking application. Of course, this is a little dump prototype created out of wizards that is doing nothing. But if you go to the software supporter, to the vendor, I can close it now. An application, you see some differences. Where's the app? Mainframe. It is a CBCG framework. It's a Russian framework, but the only framework compared to another one, which contains as much UI libraries that I am likely to have, and that's why I've chosen it. It has well-looking examples and well-looking, I can go to it. And where is it? GCG soft feature tour. Nothing here. This is the software vendor, and it has these nice looking office style ribbon bars. It has visual themes about, you can read. Much to have a nice looking UI for your application without the need to port it to .NET, without the need to make all stuff fresh from the beginning. And it has as well looking chart controls, which is one point I want to have in my software. And it has some calendar controls as well, some grid and report. The report control, I think, is a little bit um, low in features, but I need to review the samples. I need to review the possibilities with this framework. To be honest, I have this as well. This is a .NET framework. It has good looking reports. It has some, okay, this is some design. And if I go to it, sample apps, it costs about 999, and the MFC framework costs about 815 and 50. It's similar in the look and feel, but it is native and it didn't cost as much as the VCL library. It would support Delphi and C++ Builder. It may be an option if I go to the support for template generation, but only if I have some customers requesting some templates. I could use some trial. 30 days is much enough to get some little code generator out of the code that I need to generate out of the samples. And they have as well some well-looking UI in a native application language, ready to something else, but it's actually not on my decision, and my decision was using MFC libraries because I have some experience in my career, not the career but my hobby development, and I have old applications I can play with, getting grip to use it. And that's why I've made my decision to use this framework to get a commercial version out of my software for the sake of some feature that is not the Gaux. Gaux, how do I spell it? No, but the diagrams. I have a software modeling application, and I am using in my project BOUML, and this was in the past screenshots, happy modeling. Aha. It seems to be somehow. I have no idea if this is still active. Okay, here you see some diagrams, and I used UML to model my software that I want to prototype, and my own software was able to interpret the transformed output of the UML export XMI format into a database, and was able to present the UI, the menus, to open some forms, to edit some data, to add some data, showing some lists. And I was able to manage it going until to my product supported DevExpress application, code generator, which I were able to create nice looking in that time, a little bit different UI look and feel, of course, but in general is much more likely looking nice for nowadays instead of some Windows XP looking application. And my own application, you probably would understand why I have chosen a C compiler based framework that builds up on knowledge I have instead of going to Delphi and Power and C++ for the further development of my product. So I have now 1 hour reached for my presentation of my open source project and my plans in the near future. And I don't need this anymore. And simply, it's a price question, and it's a learning curve question, and this is as well something I would be able to create as well some code generator for it if I am far enough with it to support it, that some of these users of these libraries are welcoming to want my code generators finding useful. And that's it. So what I want to show as well is, I don't want to show this. You have seen some modern looking application. I have showed some Turbo Pascal stuff running. TVD, this is now still running. Okay, maybe info. Okay, it was written until 1993. Then I was moving to Windows programming, and okay, it's something like EMS-DOS setup running differently. Okay, you see some trials. I don't like this tool as I have seen it now. The way they develop, and I want to see my progress, or I want to show my progress to away from Watcom development, MFC development, to more likely a database driven development. I need to close this. Okay, it works. And it's too big, and that doesn't work. Go here. To Power++, Power++ was a tool built by Sybase, and it was the introduction of database development in one product that enabled me the development of the next step of the train reservation system. And here I could show you some errors, of course. Building errors and a running application. And I want to see here, no, the wrong window. Okay, some little UI showing one entry per element, how I navigated. Then in that time, what I was thinking about database navigation. But this one is the follow-up of the graphical train station plan, something like a netlist. And I was able to manage it getting an editor storing the netlist of train stations. Here just only some little symbols, nothing more. It was a little bit complicated in that time to get it running because of one database development was a new learning stage. How the software looks like with the database statements I've made, it's ugly. Okay, forget it. How I have done it. Anyhow, it is working, and I have some tools window developed where I could put some new elements in this design, and it was saved, and it has some crash because of some trials. I think I have included some 3D library for the sake of playing with 3D, showing stuff. Forget it. But the symbols you see here are interpreted. And this was the next step, our idea. Don't create the symbols of your own, but let the user create the required symbols to represent the business or to represent a graphical view of the data in something like this map. Beside some customer list, it looks really ugly, yet still okay, my address, and here you see some customer details, again my address and my phone number. I hope you don't call me. I need to say this is no invitation of calling me and use my data. Hereby, I prohibit using my data in any form for the sake of privacy. Okay, so Fahrpläne. It's the same like, it's not showing something, it's the same like in the old application. Was it here? No, it was as well, if I remember. Here. MFC, Disk 54, Train MFC, Project Watcom. Was it here? I'm confused. Probably. Yeah, I think, yes, you see some idea of creating some netlist and creating some connections, but as well creating some has no name, ignorieren und patched again. Okay, it hasn't patched. Text, okay, it patched. Okay, I mean, it crashed. And you see the same, okay, I need to kill it. No. To be short, showing some functionality. I was planning to create a netlist and implementing a netlist and naming these elements in the new software from Power++. It was not missing yet to display some text. And if I go further, I plan to create some train ride planning table like this one. I have no idea, but I was thinking about using fully graphic database driven at the end, not here, but data driven, graphically driven planning, and this is somehow a way to develop it the wrong way. Don't save. Because nowadays you have business software showing some forms, some entries, some lists, some reports, something else, showing the data, and don't play with too much graphical representation that is useless at the beginning of software design. So, and I must say it was a hard learning curve to become a professional software developer out of a hobby developer, but I made my way. I earn my money with it, and I still have a history where I started and why I am using MFC for my further or my future project. The commercial somehow I am confused by my own picture on the screen. When I play with the Windows, I was going the path to database development and it runs anyhow. Learning some scripting. And of course, this is a scripting language I have written by hand with the well-known Dragon books. And these are some two handbooks about compiler generation, compiler building, compiler construction. And I made it until to a single pass interpreter executing some graphical commands, and I was as well able to Bahnhofname correct. I was planning it to show some names. I hide, and ypos is some variables in the system. I give into the interpreter via passing some default values for the default variables in the system, and I managed it to go until to some graphical tool for it. Move handles, something logically connecting. In the old software was the name of the train station should be moved as well if I move the node. This is a logical connection. I got managed it to design some netlist with the MFC application, but I'm actually unable to reproduce it anyhow. I've not made some notes about it, and okay, but this was my path, and this is the point where I started writing my own framework because of the following reason. Product support was dropped, the product has been died, the vendor has decision made to do no longer develop this tool. I was stuck into the dependency of the Power++ framework. It was somehow no clean native language. It has some integrated symbols and some code generating stuff. You were not able to compile it without Power++. So it was a lock-in experience I have made in that time as well. I hardly lost money with it. It was not much. Okay, it is invested and I have learned something, but in general, I made some decision about locking in to a system that go away. Don't show me this error. Always, I know. Okay, and because of the decision power has dropped the product, I started the development of my own framework, and meanwhile developing it, I started to remember the multi-platform of Watcom feature product like OS2, Windows, DOS, and I remembered it. I wanted to have similar multi-platform support, but not OS2. Rather, I want to support Linux, Windows, and later on I started with Mac. And in between, I as well have supported Solaris, not on Intel based, what was it? Spark processor architecture. I have some box around me, not running anymore. I have no idea if it is broken, the battery kaput, broken, or something else. I wanted to be independent from the software vendors' products. And therefore, I developed my own framework. And I again have some dependencies to the compiler where I cannot circumvent actually that it is breaking my build system, and therefore I have some work to do before making a new release public. I want to fix all these issues. I want to provide in between some supported compiler by my own. repackaging it or taking the installer. I have got some backup. I need to test it against the source code. And if this is already working, I want to go to the MFC path, creating a new front-end client with the same features in it and how I have developed the UI support into my software. This is the following. A UI is normally triggering the business logic and depends solely to the business logic because it has some menus that relate onto the functions in the business logic. If I press something, somehow they are coupled, and I want to not depend on the UI framework from my business logic. Even you normally design your software with layer architecture, UI, middleware, database, 3 layers. For example, the UI, business logic, database. I would not depend on the UI framework that I use. And that's why I have developed my software in a manner that the UI provides some API that I call without exposing the UI specific API. So I made some poor C++ interfaces, poor virtual interface classes or poor virtual classes in C++, and I call them in a manner, make me a window, make me a database window, create me some menu navigation, create me some icons onto the screen. I don't bother how do you do it. I want only the solution for it to be on the screen. And this technique I want to repeat with MFC based nice looking UI framework to make out of it a production grade software with the aim that I can finance my software development activities with it, and as well having some attraction able software for the customers. And that's it for now. With the presentation of my stone old source code, where I started, how I proceeded, how I learned, going further to my strategy for the next months also, or some 2 years probably, to provide something that makes me happy to find customers. And as well, a new hardware I was buying, a good new notebook, and I probably need some new server. This is but now some on hold. And I need to figure out which is the next step hardware-wise. Mobile development is in the pipe or in the planning. Identity server support is in the planning for REST-based applications or REST-based services, which are using mobile-able format that is JSON. And I need to be able to modernize the permission system for my pre-existing wind farms demo applications, and as well the mobile application should be able to present some capabilities in a different way to design software, more likely feature clicking, want, don't want, don't want, don't want, and then having some model out of it the user has entered, and I create some ready-made software out of it to be downloadable as software code. Or if I get some inquiries to make the software for the customer, I get some payments for it, and I planned it some years ago as well. And this is my plan for the future. My 6-year break was for intentional, and as well some showstopper, and it made me able to do it as well to make this break. But I am back again and I'm starting over, and I hope I find more interested users as well with giving me some feedback, contacting me, having some questions, participate in the development, participate in the user feedback, giving me some wishes, some feature requests, anything else. So expect some news from me in round about some months. Okay. Bye bye.